Hello, welcome back to another video. It's about time we did another top 10 video, I think, though again this one is actually a top 15 video. As you can tell by the title, it is my top 15 games of 2022, though don't worry, it's not going to be a repeat of a lot of the other videos you'll be watching from the big YouTube channels, because this isn't games that are released in 2022, because I don't play anywhere near enough new releases to fill out a top 10 video for the year. This is simply the top 15 games that I have played in this year, no matter when they were released. So they could be released in the 90s, could be released last year. There are a few new releases in there that did actually release in 2022, but the game could have been released at any time. It is simply my favourite games that I played this year, no matter when they were released. Now, 2022 as a gaming year was a mixed bag, in my opinion. As I say, I only play a few brand new games a year, but there wasn't too much this year that kind of enticed me in to play on release. You'll see when I go through my list, there's a few in there, but especially as I'm primarily an Xbox gamer, there wasn't a huge amount of must-play releases coming out this year. I know it's not a platform exclusive, but Callisto Protocol was on my kind of watch list that I was going to play on release, but I waited to watch a few reviews and that kind of put me off. I thought I may as well wait until it comes down in price a bit. And yeah, there weren't really many Xbox exclusives to speak of. There is High on Life, which is on Game Pass, so I'm going to play that, but that didn't quite squeeze into 2022. And God of War Ragnarok I will play, but I'm a little bit torn. I might end up just playing it on the PS4. I don't have a PS5. I really would like to play it on the PS5 to get the most of the graphics, because I've heard it does look stunning on the new hardware. I might kind of give in and just end up playing it on the PS4. We'll see how it goes and when I think I'm going to get a new PS5. But anyway, yeah, not too bad a year. Let's dive in, shall we? So it's top 15. Just as reference, I had a look through and I've played a total of 42 games this year. So it's not like I've only played 16 and it's basically that makes the list. So there's a fair few games to choose from. I didn't finish them all of those 42. I finished, I think, pretty much all of the ones on this list. But yeah, so there's quite a reasonable sized pool to pick from for my top 15, and that's why it's a top 15. I tried to make a top 10, and there were quite a few that were just missing out on the top 10 that I did want to include. So rather than just making it an honourable mention section, I just kind of expanded out into a top 15. So let's get going. Number 15, just scraping in there, is Ghost Recon Breakpoint. So there is a review of this on my channel. For those that are interested for a little bit more of a deep dive than I'm going to give now. Yeah, the reason it's only just scraped in is Ghost Recon Wildlands, the predecessor to this, was one of my favourite games of that year. It may have even been my favourite game of that year. This one is not up to the same standards, but the core gameplay, like the shooting mechanics, the way you work with your squad, the feel of kind of taking on these missions and clearing bases and taking your shots and sniping and all that type of thing is as good as it's ever been. So that's why this game gets elevated a bit. The thing that this game let me down on was the story and the mission design, basically. I found myself just repeating the same missions over and over again. Go to this base, either extract a person or some intel, either do it stealthily or shoot everyone and go back. And that was basically the mission format, mission after mission after mission. And a lot of the bases that you were kind of attacking, though well designed, all looked very similar. All the building designs, everything looked quite similar. You were always infiltrating similar kind of style buildings. They were all very modern with hidden rooms, usually with an underground bunker. They just all had a very similar feel, so there wasn't much variety in there in terms of mission design. And after about 15 hours or so, I couldn't really be, I wasn't inclined to continue. I felt like I'd got all I needed to out of the game. But I think for anyone that hasn't got Ubisoft fatigue, which I think is what I had going into this game, because I'd recently played Far Cry New Dawn, and before that I played a few other Far Cry games, Ubisoft games, sorry. For those that don't have Ubisoft fatigue, I think this game has a huge amount to offer. As I say, the gameplay is really good. There's a huge amount of content in there. The map is huge. There's a lot of missions to tackle. They've added content, especially if you're playing co-op. You can do all of the campaign co-op. There's specific co-op missions, so there's raids and things you can tackle once you've leveled up all your gear. There's actual multiplayer in there, like PvP you can do. They've added quite a bit of additional content, so they've got kind of Tomb Raider tie-ins. I think there was a Terminator tie-in. So there's lots of content in there. So I'd say for those that are looking for a value for money game, because this is probably only kind of 10 quid now, that gives you kind of dozens and dozens of hours of entertainment, and you are happy to repeat kind of fairly similar missions over and over again, this is probably a good game for you. So yeah, just scrapes into the top 15. Next up, we are going in a very different direction. We have Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins, back on the original Game Boy. Yeah, so a very competent Mario game. I played it on my Anbernic handheld console. I haven't got it to hand to show you, but it's effectively styled after a Game Boy, but it's a modern emulation machine. I have a review up for this on my channel as well, so take a look if you want. But I really enjoyed going back to this. I wanted to play through some more historically relevant games. As I say, this was on the original Game Boy, but they've kind of nailed down the Mario mechanics that everyone knows by this stage. And the kind of sprite design and all of that is kind of how it was going forward with the 2D Marios. Very solid platforming, as you would expect. The level design, I think, is really good in this. They come up with quite a few unique ideas, and there's a huge amount actually, of enemy designs to tackle as you're making your way through. And it's the first time that Wario makes an appearance in any Nintendo game. So for that kind of relevance, I wanted to go back and play it just to see how he started. And obviously from that, he then span off his own kind of string of games as well. Became a big kind of institutional character for Nintendo. So this is where he started. And the game basically is Wario takes Mario's castle, captures it while Mario is off saving someone else. And the coins that you need to open the main door to get into the castle are hidden in 6 different worlds, which each have their own boss. So you play through the levels, defeat that boss, get the coin, and do that 6 times. And each of these worlds has their own theme, and then you can enter the castle, go through, and take on Wario at the end. But yeah, really good game. I'd say anyone that has an interest in gaming history, anyone that likes a good platformer, anyone that likes Mario, there's quite a few boxes that can be ticked here. I'd recommend going and giving this a go. It's very short, only took me 3 hours to beat. I'm sure there's some secrets and things that I missed, but that was completing every single level that I could see in the game, doing all the bosses, going through, taking out Wario, so you could do it in an afternoon if you wanted to. But yeah, recommend for anyone that's interested in a bit more of a retro style game. I think this is the only real retro game on the list, but I think it was worthy of a top 15 spot. Next up, we are jumping to the Xbox 360, and towards the start of the year I played Vanquish. So this is you'll be seeing gameplay, so I don't need to describe it too much, but it's by Platinum Games. Very fast action styled gameplay. Basically you are encouraged to be constantly moving, so you've got kind of rocket propelled feet and everything, so you can slide around the map, and there's several opportunities to enact kind of slow motion, so you can slide around, kick in slow motion, take some shots as you're going, and it just feels really, really satisfying to play. It never lets up. It's constantly go, go, go. Very satisfying combat. The story is okay. The story is not why you play this game. You play this game for the really solid, rewarding combat. You level up, you get your weapons and things as you go through, and it encourages you to keep cycling through your weapons, so it keeps things fresh as well. And some of the boss designs are really impressive as well. You have huge, I don't know if they'll be in the gameplay, probably not, because it'll be from early on, but there's lots of huge mechanized bosses and things that you're tackling that you've really got to think about. But definitely worth a playthrough. Anyone that's played Platinum Games and really enjoys their style of game design and combat, I think this is a must-play, really. Definitely worth getting your hands on, and I don't think it'll be too much now. I don't think it's gone up in price much, so get your hands on this one while you can. Right, next up at number 12, we have what's technically not a new game for me this year, but it is new DLC, and that is the Hot Wheels DLC for Forza Horizon 5. So I had a lot of fun with this. They did do a Hot Wheels DLC for, I think, Forza Horizon 3, one of the previous Horizon games, which I never actually got around to playing, and I've heard was really good. So when this came around, I had to jump on it, and yeah, I had a huge amount of fun. I don't think the reason it's down at, where are we, at 12 rather than higher up, which I think some of the other Forza Horizon DLCs would have been in the past, is I found it, the first few hours really, really fun, and then I just found it a bit repetitive because you've not got much variety in terrain. The initial excitement of racing around these bright orange Hot Wheels tracks and doing loops to loops and things, I found wore off after a little while because you haven't got the variety of terrain you'd have just on the ground. But still hugely fun. I played all the way through it. Don't think I've quite 100%ed it, but completed all of the main story, did the Goliath race at the end. Yeah, it's a great, I think it does what a DLC should do, which is give you some alternative gameplay and alternative experiences to the main game. So this certainly does that, and you've got Hot Wheels cars that you can actually unlock by playing this, which is obviously always also fun, and you can race them on the main map then, which is awesome as well. So yeah, definitely worth playing if you are a fan of Forza Horizon in general. Number 11, so not quite into the top 10, which this series definitely would have been for me in the past, and that is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the Call of Duty that's just come out kind of a month or two ago. So we're focusing on the campaign with this. I have played the multiplayer, which I think is, it's Call of Duty multiplayer. It never changes much, kind of year to year, does it? This one I do like that it is slowed down slightly. The time to kill is still ridiculously fast, maybe quicker than last year, but there's not so much sliding and quick scoping and that type of thing in the multiplayer now, which I prefer, being a bit of an older gamer now. And the Warzone, I've been playing a fair bit with friends. It's good. I like the new map. Again, it's quite hectic. I think they could do something to kind of slow it down a bit in the last phase. I find so often we get into the last phase and there's just teams everywhere, but for 20 minutes before that it's just been silence. So I'm not sure what they can do to improve the pace of that so it's a bit steadier throughout, but there we go. We've been having fun with that. I quite like Warzone, but I've got distracted here. Let's come back to the campaign. So that's what I've been rating to come onto this list. A solid Call of Duty campaign, returning favourite characters. You've got Soap and Ghost, those kind of iconic characters from the early Modern Warfare series. So it's good to return to them. There's some really good missions in this, really, really good missions actually. And the first half of the game, maybe even 2/3, I would have put this game higher up the list. I was really, really enjoying the campaign. But the last half kind of put me off the boil a little bit. They bring crafting into the game, which I don't understand why you'd bring crafting into a Call of Duty game. And there's sections where you have no weapons and you're just running around, sneaking around, trying to craft things. There's even a boss encounter right towards the end of the game where you're just running away from the boss, finding duct tape and chemicals and things to craft to make weapons, and it's just, I hated it. It was, and maybe some people like that, but I don't understand why they put that in the game. To me, that's not Call of Duty. It just doesn't make any sense to me. They were just trying to find a new gameplay mechanic, I think, to mix up the formula, and they ran with it, and I hope they don't bring it back again. And there's also a section where you are on foot, literally fighting as a boss battle, a tank, kind of as if you would in a Platinum Games game, like you would in Vanquish or something. And to me, I just hung my head at that bit as well. But still worth a playthrough. I'd say 80% of the campaign is still really good, top tier, kind of solid Call of Duty mission design and gunplay. There are some really, really good missions in the campaign. So those couple that let it down, just get through them. And there's some really solid missions in there, definitely worthy of playthrough. The solid kind of traditional stealth gameplay. There's a sniping mission like what was that sniping mission called back in the day? I can't remember. Gilly, I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, it's a really good sniping mission in there. There's ones like there was in the previous Modern Warfare game, the new one, where you're kind of clearing houses at night with night vision, and it's very atmospheric and kind of realistic. So definitely worthy of a playthrough. Right, we are now into the top 10, and worthy of the number 10 spot, I think, is Riders Republic. So this is a Ubisoft game. It is a huge open world game, so the map includes mountains, canyons, and it's a combination of lots of different national parks, real world national parks in America, that they've kind of merged together and combined into this big map to create loads of really interesting and exciting terrain to play on. And it's a extreme sports game, so there's skiing, snowboarding, mountain biking, like paragliding, jetpacking, all kinds of different extreme sports, snowmobiling, all that kind of stuff. And you can do races and trick events in all of these different disciplines, which is really fun. I've been making my way through all of them, leveling them all up, and you unlock new races and things, unlock new gear, kind of better mountain bikes, better skis, that type of thing, with better stats that enable to go faster or do tricks more easily. But one of the best things I think in this is the multiplayer, and especially, I've forgotten exactly what they're called now, but basically giant races where there's literally 60 human players all start at the top of the mountain, and then you just race down basically, and you just bomb down, and it's just utter chaos. It's absolutely fantastic. I spent hours just playing that game mode. The unfortunate thing is it only comes around, it's timed, I think, to make sure that they fill the lobby, but you do one, then you've got to wait kind of 20 minutes, half an hour for another one to appear, but I would happily do that. And they're just such great fun. And that your transition, so you'll be skiing for the start, and there's literally 60 people all bombing it down the mountain. Everyone's got stupid costumes, so there'll be a T-Rex flying past you, there'll be a chicken flying past you. And then you'll transition, you'll go up a jump, and then you'll transition into a jetpack or something, and you'll fly around for a bit, and then you'll come down into a mountain bike. And it's brilliant. It's just pure fun, and a pure kind of video game fun. And even when you're not playing multiplayer, it's got a lot of content to offer for single player as well. And I've spent quite a lot of time just exploring. I'm lucky enough to have been to a few of the national parks that are pictured in it, so I spent a bit of time just in a jetpack or something, like flying around, trying to spot points of interest that I'd seen in real life. And just spent a lot of time in this game, just exploring, doing some races, upgrading my gear, just generally having a good time. So definitely recommend this to anyone. I hope that, I haven't been on it recently, but I hope that those mass races are still going, because there's 60 odd people in a race, they are going to be reliant on people playing the game. But it's a big, I hope that there still is. It didn't come out too long ago, and it's a big Ubisoft game, so hopefully there's still people playing it. Right then, next up at number 9, we have a little indie game called Escape Academy. So this was a really nice surprise for me. I'd heard, I can't remember where I saw it, maybe on a Kind of Funny Games podcast or something. Someone was talking about having played this game on Game Pass, and their description of it kind of intrigued me a bit, so I added it to my backlog, and it came up on the random backlog generator. So there is a review of this as well on the channel as well, if people are interested. But as you might be able to tell from the title, Escape Academy, it is a game based on a series of escape rooms. So you are solving puzzles to escape the room. And they vary that format up a bit, so it's not always escaping a room. Sometimes it's kind of defusing a bomb. Sometimes, one time it's brewing a cup of tea, but you've got to kind of get all the ingredients that are locked behind various doors and things to do this. And I think it's a format that works really well converted into video game format. If you don't like puzzle games, it might not be for you, but I'm not a huge puzzle game player, but I really enjoyed this. I think that the added pressure of, you have the countdown timer like you would in an escape room in real life, and you've got that counting down, and there's that pressure of trying to solve it before you get locked out kind of thing, before you fail. And there's a huge sense of satisfaction when you do solve the puzzles and manage to get out there in the nick of time. I think the difficulty is kind of spot on. As I say, I'm not a puzzle game player, so I'm not particularly good at puzzles, but this made me feel like I was. I think they ramp up the difficulty slowly enough that by the end you're doing some reasonably hard puzzles that you wouldn't stand the chance of doing at the start, but because they've kind of worked you up slowly and you've learnt kind of the core mechanics that they're using in the game, you feel quite clever by the end. There's a bit of a loose story running through it, which does help kind of make the puzzles a bit more interesting. You're at certain times kind of trying to help people, like you're in a control room and you're trying to help other people escape, and you're kind of like the overseer. Don't want to give too much away, but there's some real good mission variety in it. It's not always you're just in a plain room, find clues and unlock the door. There's a lot more mission variety to it. I think it's still on Game Pass. I might be wrong on that. I haven't actually checked, but I haven't seen it on the leaving list. So if it is, and you've got Game Pass, it's free. You may as well give it a go. I think for people that like puzzle games, it's a must play almost. And for those that aren't a huge fan, or maybe haven't even tried the puzzle genre, I'd definitely recommend giving it a go. And if you do, let me know what you think. Right, number 8 we have. Let me just check how it is properly laid out now. So it's PGA Tour 2K23. So this is a new golf game. It used to be, so 2K have taken over the rights to it, but it used to be called the Golf Club, which was made by a small developer. Why have I forgotten their name? Let me check. Yeah, developed by HB Studios, the Golf Club was. So there was 2 or 3 of those, and then 2K, I think, either bought the rights or bought HB Studios, or some kind of combination. And now it's published by 2K. Maybe HB just still developed, but it's published by 2K, so they get an influx of budget. And then when it was taken over by 2K, they paid for all the rights and the PGA Tour licensing, so there's more PGA Tour courses in there. Now you've got all the TPC courses, and all the license, not all the golfers, but licenses for a lot of the pro golfers. And now Tiger Woods is back on the cover, which I think is probably going to help it sell more copies. But in terms of the golf game, I'm a big fan of golf games. I played, as I say, the golf club games before this, and before that, when the Tiger Woods franchise was going, I played all of them. I'll basically play any kind of AAA, AA golf game that comes out. This is a very sim golf game, so it's not that easily accessible. I think you can put the difficulty all the way down, which makes it more accessible, but if you're playing on the settings you would need to play in kind of online tournaments and things, it's quite difficult. You're going to have to put a bit of time into it to get used to the swing mechanics and club selection and how everything affects your swing. If you're off with so it's using the thumbstick, like to swing back and forward like you win the Tiger Woods games, but it not only your line, but it also measures your timing. So if you push forward too fast, or if you push forward too slow, pull back too fast or pull back too slow, the ball will go all over the place. So it takes quite a long time to be able to kind of nail your shots. Like a good round for me, on the settings I'm on, which is kind of the higher difficulty settings, is kind of 5 under. That would be a really good round for me, which I quite like because it makes it kind of more realistic. I'm playing through the campaign mode, like a PGA Tour season, and the winning numbers are kind of realistic to how they might be on the tour, which I quite like. So for people that love the arcade game, like Tiger Woods used to be back in the day, where you'd go 18, 20 under quite easily, it's not so much like that now. I'm sure there are people that can still do that, but it's a lot harder to do now. But a really good game, really solid physics. It kind of feels like you're actually playing golf. The course design is brilliant. They've got a lot of real courses in there, but they also have, which they've had all the way through from the golf club, a really good course editor, course designer, so anyone can make their own courses, and there's a really good community of designers out there that make all the well-known courses, so they're constantly coming out. So you can go on and you can play the Masters that someone's made, because that's not in the game as a main one, and Pebble Beach and things. Any courses they haven't actually got in the game officially, someone will have made a really, really good representation of that course, so you can go through and play all of them, as well as just fictional courses. So there's never a shortage of courses to play, which is really good. But yeah, anyone is remotely interested in golf games, if anyone used to play the Tiger Woods games and misses them and hasn't been playing the golf club games, I'd say this is a really good one to jump back into. You can always lower the difficulty settings if you want that kind of old Tiger Woods feel. There'll just be certain tournaments you can't enter online. But if you're not looking at playing online, it doesn't matter, does it? So yeah, really, really good golf game. If you're interested, give it a go. Next up, we're sticking with kind of the sport theme. I think this is, once this one's out of the way, this is the last sports one, so apologies to anyone that don't like sports games, but I do play a fair few. So this is F1 2021, so obviously this is from a couple of years ago, but it's on Game Pass, and I am an F1 fan, and when the F1 season kicked in at the beginning of the year, kind of March time, I kind of normally start an F1 game with the start of the season. Doesn't matter which one, just whichever one I can get my hands on. So this was on Game Pass, so I started that and I played through 1 season or 2 seasons, a couple of seasons anyway. Haven't quite won the title yet because I like to. The really good thing in this one is that I think this is the first one that you can start your own team. So you can do all your branding, start your own team. You're the manager of the team, but you can also be the driver, obviously, because it'd be a bit boring otherwise. And then you choose your teammate, who is not a known teammate, it'll be some up-and-comer, and you basically manage your team as well, so doing all the research and what you're going to spend marketing on and how much money you're going to put into your secondary driver and all of that kind of stuff. And I like to make it a bit more realistic, so as we were a starter team, I set the difficulty settings so that I was, to start with, basically I couldn't score points. I was kind of battling at the back of the pack, and that sense of progression I really like. And I think that's a nice way of doing it as well, because it means I was having just as much fun battling for 1 point, so coming 10th, as I was later on battling for the win. And I think it was a good 6-7 races in before I got my first point. And I remember that battle, a real close battle. I can't remember, I think it was with Alonso. I was 11th, he was 10th, and it was like the last lap, and I overtook him to get my first point. And it's moments like that, which I think F1 games are so good for. There's not too many other games where you're just as kind of intensely racing for 10th as you are for first, kind of thing. Most games it doesn't really matter where you come, but in F1 games, because of the way the point systems work, it really does. And then leveled the car up, leveled the team up, and then during the second season I was battling more for wins, started getting podiums, started getting a few wins, but not quite enough to win the title. And the idea is to go back, and I think what I'm going to do is just keep this save file, keep this game going, and when F1 starts again in March this year, I'll jump back on with my leveled up team and be fighting for the title. But as F1 games go, there's not really much competition, is there? I think this is, I'm sure there are some other ones out there, but this is kind of the one to go for, and I really do think they've nailed it. The physics of the driving and all the stuff you can do behind the scenes with your team, it gives you a really good F1 racing experience, and you can go as in depth as you want. You can do full length practices, full length qualifying, full length races if you want, and spend literally an entire weekend doing everything that the actual F1 drivers would do in real life. Or you can make it really quick, so it's up to you. But yeah, any racing fans, any F1 fans, a top quality game, definitely worthy of a play. Right, we're getting up there now. So this is number 6, and at number 6 we have another indie game, which is The Forgotten City. So this is another one I heard some things about. It was on Game Pass, so I added it to my backlog, and it came up in the random number generator. So there is a review for this one on the channel as well. And this, really enjoyed my time with this game. Again, like Escape Academy, I was surprised how much I enjoyed my time with this game. So the basic premise of this game is that you are trapped in a time loop. So it's one of those time loop games, you're living the same day over and over again. It's set in a kind of secret, hidden underground city, which is like an ancient Roman city, effectively. They're stuck in that technological time period, and people can't leave. Occasionally people enter, so you enter, and you're basically living the same day over and over again, talking to all of these inhabitants, finding out their stories, their secrets, solving missions as you go, and kind of for these people and working with these people, and as you go you unlock more information and more information. that helps you uncover really what's going on. And the main objective is to break the time loop and escape. Yeah, so it's really well written, the way the story unravels itself, and how you kind of peel back the layers to see what's really going on, and the conversations you have with people. It's really good. It's really well written. There's lots of layers and hidden aspects to this game, which I won't go any further with here because I don't want to spoil anything. But there's a lot of depth to this game, and there's lots of kind of oh wow moments as you keep going deeper and deeper. There is some, it's not just all talking, so there is some light platforming, some light combat. But really it's about the story, and I guess really it is kind of like a puzzle game, but you've got some other elements in there, platforming, a bit of combat and that type of thing. But definitely worthy of a play. And I should probably mention as well, I mentioned in the review, but this started out as a mod for Skyrim that was so successful, had millions and millions of downloads, that it enabled the people that designed that, they got funding through crowdfunding to start their own development studio. I think it was only 3 of them. And their first project was to turn that mod and develop it into a standalone game. And that's what this is, The Forgotten City. So it's quite nice to be able to support kind of a passionate team like that as well. I'm not sure what they're going on to do next, but I'll definitely keep my eye out for it and give it a play, whatever it is. Because if it's up anywhere near this quality, then it'll definitely be worth a look. But yeah, I played this because it was leaving Game Pass. I squeezed it in, so unfortunately it's not on Game Pass anymore. But I'm sure there's some other free avenues it's on, or just pay for it. It's a small indie game. I can't imagine it's too much, and it'd be again nice to support the developers. I'm going to try. I'm not sure if there's one available, but if it is available, I'm going to buy the physical copy so I can put it up here with the rest of my kind of Xbox One games. Next up, we have. I mentioned earlier that Riders Republic was made like pure gaming, just fun. I think this one, well, it does because I put it high up the list, even surpasses that, and that is Fall Guys. So for those that haven't played, you'll be seeing gameplay now, but you are a little bean that just runs around, and you can jump and run, and you can do a dive, and you can grab, and that's all you can do. And you'll start with like 60 other beans, all human players, or 100, I can't remember how many it is. And you basically, there's a series of races, so you'll run through a race, and you just have to make it to the end. And the last third or so people will be eliminated, and then you make it to the next round. And sometimes it's a race, sometimes it's like challenges, like puzzle challenges, like you have to stand on, like memory games, you stand on a square, and if you remember the wrong fruit, you fall through. Sometimes it's ones where like Wipeout, where you're standing on a circular platform, the thing's kind of spinning around to knock you off, and you have to jump over it. It's basically just each round eliminates a certain number of players, and you have to make it to the very end, and then you'll go into a final, and whoever wins that final will be crowned the champion, and you get a crown. But it's just such good fun, just like laughing constantly. The design of the characters is brilliant, the fact that they're just a little bean, and you can get obviously loads of different cosmetics and costumes for them. I think it's the game, I normally don't really care too much about cosmetics, but it's a game where I actually really did care about the cosmetics for my character. I happily paid for the battle pass just so I could start getting some of the outfits and things. And playing this with friends was amazing. I played it by myself to start with, and then when I found out how fun it was, I had to persuade my friends to play it, which can sometimes be quite difficult because they tend to just stick to their lanes of games they play. But yeah, I persuaded a couple of them to come on it, and we had a blast for a good few weeks just playing this most nights, and it's so fun. It's so funny. So anyone that hasn't played it, it is free to play now. So it's free to play on Xbox, free to play on PlayStation. I assume it's on PC, I'm not sure. But yeah, just give it a go. I don't think you'll regret it. I don't see how anyone couldn't find this game kind of hilarious and great fun. And the good thing about it is, as well as being hilarious, the actual physics of it are spot on. So you can, if you put the time in and you want to, if you can be bored, you actually can get really good at this game. You can get to learn kind of the different events and the routes to take, and especially towards the end. So there's one of the final levels is a series of hexagon layers. and if you stay on a hexagon too long, you'll fall through to the next layer and keep going down. And basically at the bottom you die. Well, you don't die, they're little beans, but you fall through when you're out of the event. And it's the last one surviving wins. And basically on that one, if you practice it enough, you can just hop from hexagon to hexagon to hexagon and make like epic dives and things. And if you're practiced enough, if you get to that, you can effectively almost guarantee a win. I had a fair few wins doing that, but then occasionally you'll come up against someone else that is also really, really good, and then you'll have an epic battle kind of all the way down. Very tense, but yeah, it's great fun. I love this game, and I think it's a game I'll carry on playing for years to come, I would have thought. And the other good thing, I keep going on about this game, I don't know, but the other good thing is that they're constantly releasing new content. So basically I go on every few weeks now for an evening, for a few hours, and every time I go on there's new events, new cosmetics, new everything. So I think they're going to keep updating it for a long time to come. Anyway, let's move on. At number 4 we have another indie game, and that is Death's Door. So I played this right at the start of the year. It was on Game Pass, another one where I think it was at the end of 2021. It was in loads of Game of the Year videos put out by all the outlets. And I saw it was on Game Pass, so I was like, well, I've got to give it a go. And yeah, an incredible game. So in terms of genre, it's kind of a isometric, looking down on your character, moving around, kind of like Zelda, old school Zelda, crossed with like a Metroidvania game with some puzzle elements. Well, you'll see some gameplay now, but yeah, it's kind of a really charming, kind of cross with Dark Souls as well. Because in terms of, I know everyone says that, oh, it's Dark Souls-esque, but in terms of some of the combat, for an indie game, I'd say it is. Some of the combat, especially later on, is very much kind of Dark Souls inspired, I'd say. So you have to, if you take too many hits, you die quite quickly, and it's about dodge rolling, parrying, and getting your timing right. You don't just walk in hacking. If you do that, you'll die. You have to dodge roll and make sure you're getting around your opponents and timing your strikes properly. But it's a very solid gameplay experience. I think the combat and traversal is spot on. I never got frustrated. I sometimes got frustrated that I was dying, but it was always my fault. And there's lots of different worlds, doors you go through to different worlds, so the environments are constantly fresh. Yeah, so I think the premise, the setup of the game is also quite unique and interesting. So you play as a crow, and your job is to kind of collect the souls of the dead. So there's that kind of iconography going on with it, that you're a crow, and you effectively get a little bit screwed over near the start, and you have to go through these three or four different worlds to collect the souls of these main bosses that will allow you to escape where you are and move on with the story. But I think I found the premise of that really quite interesting, and the style of the game, the visual appeal of the game is top tier as well. It looks stunning. The way that certain areas of the game are in black and white I found really striking. Most of the game in the worlds and things is in colour, but your home hub is in black and white, and some of the later missions and things you play are in black and white, and I think that works really well. And yeah, the combat is spot on, the enemy design is spot on. It's a really, really good game, and I'd say it's definitely worth a playthrough for anyone that kind of is remotely interested in this style of game. Right, we're getting to the serious end of business now. We're getting into the top 3. So in at number 3, we have Fallout New Vegas. So I played this very recently, just put a review up on the channel in the last couple of weeks, so check that out if you would like to. A game that's been on my backlog for kind of 10 years. Really enjoyed Fallout 3, played a bit of Fallout 4, but I've always heard that this is kind of the best Fallout game, so I've always been meaning to get onto this one, and it came up through the backlog selector, so it's obviously doing its job. So what did I think of this game? Obviously really enjoyed it. It's number 3 in the games I played this year. The story, the the way that your choices actually make a difference, the fact that your choices have consequence and you can shape the entire kind of shape of the story going forward through the choices you make through dialogue options. I loved a lot of games kind of make you feel like you've got choices and consequence but never actually deliver on it. This one really will. If you screw over a certain kind of group of people or tribe, they will kind of turn on you, and that completely shapes how the rest of the story will go. You will just have complete huge quest lines that are just shut off for you. So I love that aspect of the game. I found it really satisfying that I kind of decided halfway through the game how I wanted to try and shape my story and what ending I wanted to try and achieve. And I managed to do that, and along the way, when I was making these choices, it kind of made sense and was logical to me, and you had to tread a fine line at times between different people that you're working with. The story is incredibly well written. Every NPC that you meet, whether they be a main character or a side character, is fully voice acted, so that kind of helps you immerse you in the world. The world itself I thought was fantastic. It really felt like I was in kind of a post-apocalyptic world. It's very kind of drab and muted in terms of the tones, but I think that works because that's kind of what it would be like. It's post-nuclear apocalypse, so most vegetation and stuff is gone. There's not much green left in the world, and it's set in kind of Arizona and Nevada area, so it's desert landscape anyway. I thought the setting was really nice, and when you do find kind of settlements and civilization, the way they've designed it and the dialogue of the NPCs you meet and things really kind of enforces you and makes you kind of immersed in this kind of post-apocalyptic world. I thought that was really good. In my review, and I still agree with this, the few downsides to it I would say are mainly the combat. That system works really well, but when you're in kind of free mode, like just aiming down sights with your gun, to me it doesn't feel very good, and that's the main thing that took away from it for me. I think if they had really nailed the combat, and I really enjoyed the combat in this game, it would certainly have been number 2, maybe number 1 this year in games I played, but I just pulled it down a little bit for me. But I can really understand why people hold this game in such high regard. I'm definitely going to go back and play this some more. I mainlined the main story pretty much to do the review, just because sometimes I fall off longer RPGs before I finish the story, and I wanted to make sure that I finished the story, get the review out. But now that I've done that, I keep thinking about this game. I was playing through KOTOR last week or the week before, and I was just thinking I want to go back to Fallout New Vegas. So I'm going to go back and do some of the side missions. I don't know if I'm going to go back and do everything, but I certainly want to spend a bit more time in this world. So I'm going to go back and play that. So anyone, I think I'm one of the few that hadn't played Fallout New Vegas prior to this year. But if anyone hasn't, or if anyone's kind of just started getting started in RPGs, I'd say this is a really good one to kind of start with, or play if you've only played, like if you played some Fallout games but haven't played this one. It's definitely worth going back to. Yes, if you've only played more modern RPGs, the graphics are a little bit dated, but they're not too bad at all. And I played it through the Series X, and it looks pretty good. I think it upscales it slightly, so I don't know if it's full 4K, but it certainly looks better than it would be playing through a native Xbox 360. But definitely worth playing through. And if you're a PC gamer and you haven't played it, then definitely jump on it, because I know there's a huge modding community for it, and people have made mods to sort out the feel of the shooting and things. They've completely revamped how the gunplay works. So one of the few times I'm a little bit jealous of PC players that I can't kind of turn that mod on the console. But anyway, yeah, worth a playthrough. And now we move on to number 2. So number 2 was a big surprise for me. Again, it's one of these that before, in the lead up to the game, I wasn't considering playing it at all. I was like, not really for me. And maybe I'll play it years down the line when it's kind of on sale or something, but wasn't going to pick it up anywhere near release. And then the reviews for it were stellar. And this game is Guardians of the Galaxy. So, yeah, a huge surprise. I love so many things about this game. So one of the great things about it for me was I hadn't long had my Series X, and this is a real looker of a game. If you've got next gen console, especially Xbox, because there's a few exclusives now for PlayStation, come on Xbox, you need to get your act together. But on the Series X, this is a real showpiece for the console. It looks stunning. Not only is it stunning graphically and lighting and all of that, but the actual design of the environments that you go to by the developers is kind of ridiculously good. The entire playthrough, I was really looking forward to seeing what kind of the next location would be, just because the design of some of these locations is impeccable. It's really good. The story as well, running through it, I thought that maybe, because it's not the kind of, they couldn't have the likenesses of the characters from the movies, so they had to kind of redo them to a certain extent, but they're quite similar. But I thought that might detract from it at all, but it doesn't, and I actually think I prefer, now that I've spent a lot of time with them, the versions of the characters from the game than I do from the movies. It's really, really well written. The comedy for me, I mean, comedy's a personal preference, isn't it? Like the quips between the different characters as you're playing through is really funny. There's a few laugh out loud moments, and the story in general, the arching story through the entire game, gripped me, and I found that quite interesting. It's just a blockbuster movie in a game format basically, but because it's a game, you've got a lot more hours to flesh out characters and explore kind of different locations and that type of thing. And it's just a huge, I love sci-fi, so the fact that it's all set in a sci-fi universe in space and you're going to different planets and you're fighting aliens and different creatures and different people, I found kind of really enjoyable as well. It got a few knocks for the combat, which I can understand. The base combat, I'd say, is nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't have much depth. A few hours in, you've kind of got what you've got. You do unlock some abilities, and you can tell your different characters to do attacks as well. So you've got a bit of management in there. Just go into it playing for the story and the locations and the graphics and that type of thing, and don't expect huge amounts from the combat, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. The combat is passable, it's serviceable, it does its job, and I didn't find myself frustrated with the combat. And I think it helps that I watched some reviews and I went in knowing that it wasn't going to be stellar combat. That's not the selling point of the game. But yeah, really, really enjoyed my time with this game. Would recommend it to anyone, really. I would definitely be playing through this again at some point, probably this year or next year. It's not a huge, well, it's got, I can't remember exactly how long I took, but it's not a short game, it's not a super long game. You kind of play through it once and you're done, unless you're kind of a achievement hunter and you want all the collectibles and things. It's probably like a 10 to 15 hour playthrough for the main campaign, so a decent chunk to get your teeth stuck into, but you could probably finish it in a weekend if you had the time. But yeah, great game. Recommend to, well, pretty much anyone, really. And now we've finally come to the number one spot. And again, this is just games I've played this year, but ironically this game was released in 2022. And I know most of my list has been fairly original because most of them aren't 2022 games, but this one is not. And I make no apologies for that because this deserves to be on there, and that is Elden Ring. So, this is my first From Software game, my first kind of Dark Souls-esque game. I didn't really know what to I knew what to expect, but I didn't really know if I'd get on with it going in. It came out in February, I think, didn't it? February, March, at that kind of time, like early in the year. I made the decision, I pre-ordered it. I was like, right, this is going to be the one that I kind of get my teeth stuck into and give a go and see if this is the style of game for me. I'd heard that it was open world, that it was going to be a little bit easier. People thought it might be than previous From Software games. So I thought, right, this is the one. I'll get stuck in. From the gameplay, like the previews I've been seeing, it looks stunning. So I got my teeth. I thought, yep, definitely going to pre-order this. And yeah, as you can tell, I enjoyed it immensely. It took me a while to kind of get used to the combat and not just die constantly. There was and I knew that was going to happen, so I made the decision I was going to persevere, because there was a couple of times early on, if I didn't go in prepared knowing that it was going to be difficult at times, I may have fallen off it with frustration. But the thing that I really liked is I spent, I think, 40 hours in the first area. If you played the game, you'll know what I mean. And the reason for that is I went to face the first big boss at the castle after about 20 hours, and I just got destroyed. And I tried for an hour to beat him, and I was just like, no, either I don't have the skill, or I'm too early. Probably a combination of two, mainly that I didn't have the skill. But what I liked about it is because it was open world, I could go back and I literally finished, unless there was some that I'm missing that I didn't know about, but I literally finished kind of every dungeon that I could find, every side mission that I could find, and really leveled up my character. And then I went back and just crushed him. I mean, I didn't do it first time, it still took me 3 or 4 attempts, but it was so much easier. And that was a really satisfying gameplay. And I, from what I understand, in the other Dark Souls games, you wouldn't be able to do that as much. You kind of just got to get good. But I like that this allowed me to get better, but also level up my character and make them stronger. And then when you get through there and the immenseness of the rest of the game opens up, I did find it quite daunting. And I'll be honest here, I have not finished Elden Ring. I know. I will finish Elden Ring. But because it took me 40 hours to get through there, and then I went through into that bit and I carried on and put another 20, 30 hours in, and because I was doing pretty much everything, A, because I enjoyed it so much and I loved finding the secrets and all that kind of thing, but B, I kind of feel like I need to level up my character to make it easier for me. I played it for kind of a month and a half, 2 months solidly. I just got to the point where I kind of needed to play something else. So I made the decision to put it aside, play some other things, and I will go back to it and I will finish it, because it is such a good game. It has so much depth to it that at times early on I found it daunting, but it's the same with most RPGs. Once you kind of get used to the basic of what you're supposed to be doing and how to level up your character and that kind of thing, it kind of starts falling into place. And it's definitely one of those games, I think it is better to stick with it. So it's going to be, I will definitely go back and finish it, but it's definitely going to be one of those, it's going to take me a little while to get back into it when I do jump in. But the world design, the enemy design, the bosses, every time I went to a dungeon, I was always excited to see what the next boss would be. The challenge to it, which I think is really one of the selling points of the game, to be honest. I don't think the game would feel the same if it didn't have that challenge to it. There's not that satisfaction of overcoming certain obstacles. I mean, not just that boss, but there were certain other dungeons and things in that first area and in the second area that I would go to, get my ass kicked, try again. There were several bosses that I spent half an hour repeatedly trying to defeat, and then eventually would, with a slither of health left, and that kind of elation when you do that. And then you go back and tackle some other bosses that you struggled with early, and you can finally defeat them. It's such a satisfying feeling. Yeah, what a good game. And I know it's at the top of loads of lists this year. It won Game of the Year at the Game Awards, which I haven't played God of War Ragnarok, but I think it deserved for the way it's changing up the genre, and the way it's so different from anything else out there. God of War Ragnarok, I'm sure, is a brilliant game. I played the prequel, the first God of War, absolutely amazing game. But I don't think God of War Ragnarok is changing up the formula too much from God of War, whereas Elden Ring is kind of changing up everything, isn't it? The amount of discord about this game for literally months after it was released, the amount of secrets and hidden things and different builds and different ways you could tackle things, watching people speedrun it in ridiculous ways. So definitely my game of the year. It has inspired me. I bought Bloodborne on PS4, so that's on my random backlog selector now, so at some point that will come up, and I'm excited / nervous to play through that, because I know I'm not just going to be able to level up in that. It's just going to be a challenge, which I'm happy to take on. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the list. Thank you very much for watching. if people feel like it, please put your top 5, top 10, top 15, however many you want to put games you've played in 2022 down below in the comments. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and dropping a like. And yeah, have a great day, and on to the next one.